love lives here.
All right, so I have the distinct honor and pleasure of sharing these beloveds with you. I first met Reverend Sonia when she was still a candidate, a ministerial candidate, and I happened to be on her licensing panel, and she was talking about her work in the world and what she was doing, and she mentioned this app that she and her business partner were creating around mindfulness, specifically tailored to the Black experience. And I was like, I love you. I love this. When you are ready to do this, let us know here in Riverside and we will be on board. And so a few months later, she goes, Rev Jeff, we're ready. And let me introduce you to David. And I fell in love with these two individuals like right away. And you will see why. I guarantee you will see why. So I want to tell you just a little bit more about them and how they came to be here and doing what they're doing. Reverend Sonia uses her obsession with technology and her passion for mindfulness to organize and harmonize almost every aspect of her life. As she says, she has been a Black woman her whole life, a small business owner for nearly 20 years, and an active leader for more than a decade. Sonia's consistent mindfulness practices and frequent productive use of technology help her to effectively manage stress, consciously parent her powerful daughter, and to skillfully and successfully design, build, cultivate, and grow containers where amazing things happen. She received her minister's license from the School of Spiritual Leadership in Northern California in 2021. And then David, I want to share with you David because you're going to hear from him as well. So David designs, builds, and cultivates successful and productive sales and strategic partnerships to increase awareness, affinity, buy-in, and revenue, all with mindfulness at its core. With over 15 years of experience, David puts the funk in cross-functional training and leadership. And he uses his intense desire to serve intentionally and intentionally and effectively connect people, places, and ideas, combining his commitment to his own mindfulness evolution with his commitment to create lasting change and healing. David is on a soul mission to serve, collaborate, impact, add value, and most of all, have fun. So please join me with a warm Riverside welcome for Reverend Sonia Russell and David Walker.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Reverend Jeffrey. There's always an intro, and you're like, oh, that's no pressure in that at all. No pressure in that at all. That clock doesn't seem to work. Stand by. Okay, hold on. I'm going to set myself a timer because I do good with timers. So I am grateful to be here. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. Greetings from Heart and Soul Center of Light in Oakland, California. That is the center that we belong to with Reverend Dr. Andriette Earl. I'm a founding member of that center, and we just celebrated our 13th anniversary. Yes. So we're just, young teenagers in ministry. And I want to lift up, if you don't know Dr. Andriette, she is powerful and brilliant and has a relationship with the divine that reminds me to have a really deep relationship with the divine. It is present in her and obvious in her, and it's something that I love and cherish about her. And she makes being open and available to spirit look effortless, when in fact it's kind of terrifying. Just for the record, right? I moved into deciding I wanted to be in ministry reluctantly, I have to say. But I'm here, and my relationship with the divine goes deeper every day, and I'm grateful for that. And we were in community with your leadership yesterday, and that was fantastic. You all are fantastic. Like, you guys are an amazing community, and it was really a blessing. to be a part of that. And we talked about change, and we talked about the challenge of diving into change. And because y'all have a lot of change afoot. And I feel like being open to the divine is akin to always being ready for some change. Uh-oh, this battery pack just fell off. Pardon me. I'm just gonna put it in my pocket. So it feels like, so ministers, we plan, and then we endeavor to get out of the way and let Spirit do what Spirit is gonna do. And so that's my constant endeavor, is to get out of the way and let Spirit do what it's gonna do. So it's an honor to be present in coming from a ministry that's still new, for all intents and purpose, in comparison to this ministry that has been around for a considerable amount of time. I went and stood, David and I went and stood where Ernie, that's what I call Ernest Holmes, yes, where Ernie had been and stood and absorbed the reverence of that moment. And things like that always just make me realize that every place can be special. It's right over there by the bathrooms. And I was like, oh, well, Ernie was here, and I was all excited about it. And every place can be like that, right? We can bring that reverence and that importance and that sanctity into every moment, into every space that we're in. And that reminds me of just living into who I am intending to be, right? And bringing that reverence and sanctity into everything. So I'm working with this talk title because he asked me for one. And acceptance, awareness, and wholeness. I had to add the oh my, because that feels like a lot of things. And it's my life, right? Working on accepting who I am and how I am, and the people that I surround myself, who they are and how they are. And it's no joke. Oh my, it feels like when I'm thinking about what it means to collect myself and be present and show up in the world in a way that feels that I am representing myself authentically and vulnerably is a lot. So I recently had I'm from Oakland. We moved to Oakland when I was 4 from Ann Arbor, Michigan. If any Midwesterners out there, U of M, let's go. There is a tremendous unhoused population in Oakland. And I've lived there for a lot of years. And so it feels hard sometimes, right, to live in what we know to be an abundant universe and to still have so many experiencing what seems like the opposite of that. And I recently had an encounter with a gentleman. The way I interact with unhoused people is important to me. I endeavor to make sure I always respond when they ask, to not ignore them. Being unseen is heartbreaking. And so often, I remind myself, and I try to remind other people, to let your heart be a little bit broken. Don't ignore them, because surely their hearts are broken, right? And I remind myself that, when our hearts are broken, that's where the light gets in, right? I had the encounter, and this gentleman was struggling. You could see that he wasn't present in his body. And it made me really feel for him. And so I also have the tendency, if I'm not in direct contact, to just be sending love and light. Whatever can protect you, may there be some ease in your life. May you have something that you need today. May you experience some love today. And in that moment, I had the realization of what the idea of everything being perfect, whole, and complete, and God being in every single thing. The only way for God to express itself is to know every single thing, right? To know every nuance of this human experience, to know the terror, to know the trauma, to know the heartbreak. God is in that, because that's the only way for God to truly know itself, to truly express itself through us as human beings. And it was such an awakening moment for me, because it really made that clear. God is in everything. I know it looks absolutely like that's not true there. It looks absolutely like somebody somehow has let that man down. Somebody somehow has not, we're supposed to be our brother's keeper. What's happening to him? And I sent him love and light. And I allowed my heart to be broken for him. And then I remembered that's God. That's God working in him. It's God working in me. It's God working in that moment, in that situation. And it's perfect. Right? That's what makes it so perfect. And so there's so many parts of our lives that we don't think fit into that perfect category, right? There's stuff that we're hiding from, that we're ashamed of. You know, I got this long history and I want to hide this. Don't look at this part, like right over here. I'm not proud of that part. There's guilt, there's shame, whatever the thing is. And our opportunity is to know otherwise, right? To know that we're still perfect. We're still God having the Sonia experience, right? So I found this quote by a woman named Joy Page, and it says, "You are all things, denying, rejecting, judging, or hiding from any aspect of your total being creates pain and results in a lack of wholeness." That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yes, I would just write, yes, please. You are all things, denying, rejecting, judging, or hiding from any aspect of your total being creates pain and results in a lack of wholeness. We are all things. I am all things, right? Imagine that. And that's where our perfection lies, right? In our, we are so complicated. Oh my God. People are so people-y, right? We are full of emotion and confusion and trauma and anger and joy, and all of those things sometimes exist simultaneously. And we're lucky if we had family who taught us how to address and be with emotion. And some of us are just figuring it out. Some of us haven't yet figured it out. You know, sometimes I feel like I got it, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to sit down. I need to go be doing something else. We're full of expectations and uncommunicated expectations. Lord have mercy. And it just makes being in relationship together interesting. How about that? Interesting. You know, living in a diverse community is a challenge, right? It is a challenge worth pursuing, but it is absolutely a challenge. And, you know, Reverend Jeffrey mentioned I've been Black my whole life, and I've been a woman for way longer than I was a girl. And I had my daughter later in life, and I'm of a certain age and a certain shape, and we live in a world where it's easy to deny and criticize myself for all the things, for being too Black, or for being too curvy, or for being too old, or whatever the thing, right? So many opportunities, especially now that we're working on this app and the presence. Social media is not the thing that I'm called into naturally. And there's so many opportunities for me to cast derision upon myself. But then I can go back to what Joy Page said, right? Denying, rejecting, judging, or hiding from any aspect of my total being creates pain. Any aspect. All of me is great. And I'm trying to lean into that, right? Trying to lean into it. Trying to lean into having a 10-year, she'll be 11. My daughter will be 11 next weekend. And she is powerful. Lord have mercy. She knows who she is all the way. And I only recently started knowing who I was, and she's already like, 10 and knowing who she is and stands very unapologetically in her power. She's a negotiator. That's fun sometimes. It's all the things. I I bought a house a few years ago, and I moved my mother in to help take care of her. And that is beautiful. I love everything about that. And it's also a challenge. Like, my mother is of a certain age, and I was raised a certain way, and I often look at her, and I'm like, who are you, and where is my mother? Because she lets my daughter do things that I don't understand. And, still she'll ask my daughter what she wants to eat, but then tell me what we're eating, it's so many things. It's so many things. And I love it. I love every part of it, and it is my goal, to stay at least a little bit of a step ahead of her, as long as I can, in terms of reflecting my whole complete self, right? Like, I want to pass on as little baggage to her as possible. I want her to be able to grow into the life she dreams of living. And then I have to sometimes invoke my health and safety rule, where there's no negotiating. I'm your mother. It's my job. Here's what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's a different talk. Reining in a powerful 11-year-old is a whole different thing. I also have had now my event consultancy probably 21 years. It'll be 21 years this year. I actually helped plan the event where the Palm 5 was launched. Anybody remember the Palm 5? It was like one of the first Palm 5. Anyway, it's a long, long time ago. I was doing that, and then COVID. Just a huge marker in time. That's also a weird mixer-up of time, so it's hard to say sort of what that COVID was. And now, if y'all didn't know, COVID is still outside, so make sure that you're looking out for yourself. David came along during that time, and I'd known him from our center, and he became part of our bubble. We do a camping trip out with extended family every year. David came along for that trip, and we found out that the friend of mine who'd been working on this project, then called Mindful You, had gotten a grant from the National Institutes of Health and partnered up with the psychology department at Spelman to come together and create this app that was specifically designed with mindfulness as an intervention for stress in African Americans. Well, at the time, I wasn't doing anything anymore, right? Because it was COVID and nobody was gathering. I typically did events that sort of were like 1,000 people or more. So that was not happening at all anymore. And so we leaned into what I really felt like was the culmination of a lot of the things I do. Organizing, mindfulness. I have a robust mindfulness practice. I was a practitioner for 10 years before I got my license as a minister. And is that true? 10 or 11, something like that. See, the COVID time makes everything weird. So I leaned into that. And this opportunity is transforming my life. Like, being a solopreneur is nothing like running a company where you need more support than a solopreneur. It's in the title, solo. Like, I can do most of the things myself, and now coming into this new business, most of it I can't do myself. I'm relying on community. I'm relying on David, my co-founder, to a huge extent to really bring it all together. And it's work, right? Like, when somebody says you got to do the work, life is the work. Spoiler alert, it's just life. Like, when I say you have to do the work, it's just life. You have to figure out how to live it from a place of integrity. You have to figure out how to live it from a place of joy and intention. And that's what this whole experience has me working on, figuring out how can I accept what is and, lean into an amount of self-awareness that allows me to be accepting without rolling over and just letting things be, right? And so the work is about trusting myself, right? It's about continuing to trust God. It's about showing up and being in community. It's about seeing and accepting people for who they are, what they bring into the world, embracing gifts, embracing talents. It's complicated. Like, it embraces all the complicated things that we are as human beings, right? And it's so beautiful, and it's so necessary. And we all get the great opportunity to work that part of our lives out ourselves, right? And we get to do it in a way that hopefully brings us some joy, that hopefully brings us a sense of wholeness. It hopefully has us cease denying and judging and rejecting ourselves, or denying and judging and rejecting anybody else, right? Because we're all just working it out. We're all just doing our best, right? And it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes you want to tell somebody they're not working hard enough. I want to tell myself I'm not working hard enough all the time. But sometimes it looks different on different days. And sometimes I can accept myself more than I can on other days. But the work is still the work, right? And it's still the effort of every day. Ernie says on page 193 of The Science of Mind, if one would take time, once a day at least, to let go of all that is not true, let go of doubt, distrust, worry, condemnation, and fear, and lay hold of life in its expressions of beauty, truth, and wholeness, their mental congestion would be healed. I'm going to read that one more time. If one would take time, once a day at least, to let go of all that is not true, let go of doubt, distrust, worry, condemnation, and fear, and lay hold of life in its expressions of beauty, truth, and wholeness, their mental congestion would be healed. So that denying and rejecting and judging, that's the mental congestion, right? Like, that's all the muck, that's the layers that we've used to protect ourselves, that we've used to defend ourselves, right? That we use to, the masks we wear, physical and metaphorical, right? And we have to lay hold of our lives. I love that phrase, lay hold of our lives, take possession. Make sure that we are working in our lives, present to it, taking all the responsibility for it. It is all, the fact that we are responsible for our lives is the good news. Sometimes it feels like the bad news, but legit, it is the good news, right? We're laying hold of our lives and its beauty, truth, and its wholeness. Accept all of it, every part of it. It's fantastic. It's a great opportunity. And not that acceptance as resignation, right? Like, not that, fine, it's gonna be what that is, right? That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about seeing things as they are so that you can move into change. Nothing can be changed. James Baldwin says, not everything that can be faced can be changed, but it can't be changed if you don't face it, right? So there's something about standing in that, right? About leaning into that. That regardless of appearance, that's no easy task. I'm aware that it's no easy task. It's the work, remember? It's this life that we're all living in. We use self-awareness to get ourselves into the present moment, to allow ourselves to cultivate the lives that we're attempting to live, and to do so vigorously and unapologetically, and from a place of remembering that we are whole, from a place of knowing that we are whole. So I want to end with a simple affirmation that comes from Meditations for Self-Help and Healing. It's part of the Science of Mind textbook. Make sure you have a relationship with Ernie. I call him Ernie because his work is so good. Like, there's so many parts of his work. A lot of it's heady, like the Science of Mind textbook, Lord have mercy. However, he's got some other really fantastic stuff. One of my favorites right now is Love and Law. If you haven't read it, it's actually a transcription of talks that he had done in his early years when he was still like fire. Like it was pre the textbook. So it was still, he was really still new in his discovering of spirit and his revelations of truth. And so I highly recommend it. But this comes from the Science of Mind textbook. We're all going to take a deep breath together. Today, I completely accept my wholeness. Let's say it together. Today, I completely accept my wholeness. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Sonia. And thank you, family, for allowing us the space to be here and be in community with you. And so thank you, Sonia, for reminding us to lean into our wholeness and for grounding us. And so now we have an opportunity to go within, to have more of the revealer reveal itself to us. And so right now I ask that you close your eyes and allow yourself to notice the pattern of your breathing. It is the breath that connects us. It is the breath that is the reminder that there is a power in the presence that holds everything in divine order and in divine alignment. This power in this presence is everywhere, animating everything, bringing with it peace, harmony, love, light, joy. It is the sun that shines. It is the oceans and every wave. It is the earth that grounds and nurtures. It is the breath and the air that connects us to this divine life, this divine presence known by many names. This creative love intelligence is seeking to know more of itself through each and every one of us, to express its individuality while still representing the one. I know that I am one with this universal creative love intelligence, and that every person under the sound of my voice stands in the consciousness and the vibration of who and who we are in the divine, as the divine. That reminds us who and whose we are. I know that everyone under the sound of my voice is standing courageously and boldly in this awareness, accepting who we are, leaning into our wholeness and allowing that brilliance to be reflected on the planet and beyond. Standing in this consciousness and in this awareness, I know that it is our natural birthright to live our best lives. That the peace of the divine represents in our knowing of ourselves as it, through embracing our divinity and our oneness. That the poise of the divine shows up as our willingness to trust, have faith, and believe that we are indeed creating and bringing forth a world that works for everyone. That we stand in our power unapologetically, trusting and knowing that we are the ones that we have been waiting for. All of this allows us to reflect the brilliance and the light of the divine out into the planet, out into the world, and I give thanks. I am thankful that we know whose and whose we are and that we stand in this knowing unapologetically, courageously, boldly, embracing our divine heredity as the sons and the daughters of the divine. I know that life continues to expand and express more and more of itself, that there is oneness within the oneness, and we stand in that oneness. That the evolutionary pull of the universe that holds the planets in orbit is pulling us to our greatest yet to be. That instantaneously, by right of consciousness, we are able to land in who and how we were supposed to be as life has ordained it to be so. That life goes ahead of us, providing everything that we need before we knew we needed it. So I give thanks that this day is blessed, that we are blessed, and that the blessings continue to ripple as we show love, and more love, and become more of the love that we endeavor to see. So from this place of awareness, from this place of knowing, from this place of high expectation and joyful optimism, I release this knowing into the activity of God's law that always says yes. And so I invite each of us collectively to know this truth by saying, Ashe, and so it is.
Love